The 2023 Lenovo Legion Pro 7i takes everything you love about the 7, but in a much more streamlined and accessible manner, with even more impressive power. With some of the latest specs giving some serious support and a beautiful wide-view 16-inch display to enjoy it all on, there's a lot to benefit from upgrading to this next generation of versatile on-the-go gaming platforms.
Hello and welcome to Box, where we unbox, review and demonstrate the latest tech.
Straight out of the box, you get the laptop and this much slimmer power brick with a nice long cable. Once it's set up and turned on, you get a good look at the overall design here. The entire body is pretty consistent overall, covered in a nice metallic smoky colouring, with a few stylistically placed Legion and Lenovo logos, tastefully positioned on the front and back. The majority of the main body seems to be solidly built from a metal material, whereas the main plate housing the keyboard and touchpad is made from a hard-wearing matte plastic. Though it's nice to see Lenovo using recycled aluminium and plastics here, making it a bit more greener than the previous versions. Of course, as a gaming laptop, the ventilation around the edges is ample enough to help the cooling system do its work. The vents do protrude out a little, potentially for a more edgy design angle, but apart from this, the shape is mostly smooth with rounded edges, allowing the laptop to adapt easily to any environment. Taking it in hand, it's got a bit of weight to it, coming in at around 2.8 kilograms. Still, it's not too cumbersome to carry around with you even at 16 inches, and personally I prefer the nicely weighted laptop that holds firm no matter what I'm doing. When closed, it sits at about an inch high from the surface, but as it's designed for more performance rather than aesthetic, it's naturally quite imposing on space. But of course it's all worth it for how well it performs. I was surprised to find how flexible the screen extension is. It folds 180 degrees completely flat to the table, and better yet, the hinge is strong enough to hold the screen in place firmly at any angle, without lifting the base of the laptop in the process. For your ports and connections, Lenovo has put on a decent spread. On the right, you'll find a 3.5mm headphone jack port, a privacy switch for the webcam, and a single USB. On the left, there's another single USB alongside a USB-C Thunderbolt 4. The back is where you'll find the majority of the ports, housing an RJ45 for direct Ethernet, a USB-C, an HDMI 2.1, two more USBs, and finally the power input. There is a nice selection of connections here that are specifically catered to gamers, so this laptop easily holds up its end of the bargain when utilising other devices for support when needed. Let's take a closer look at the keyboard and touchpad here. Apart from that eye-catching fully illuminated RGB backlight, you're gifted with a full-size True Strike keyboard, which is useful if you like to use the numpad for inventory hotkeys. There's even an option to swap out the keycaps too, which you don't normally find on gaming keyboards, making it very desirable for those who strive to make it their own. The keys have quite a low profile with a soft, almost silent touch. They do feel like they have some resistance, making typing quite deliberate, but for gaming, I felt it really helps make movement more of a purposeful action. I was pleased to see the full-sized arrow keys here too, giving plenty of surface area to my movement keys, though with the keyboard taking up quite a bit of room, the touchpad space is about average. There's still plenty of room on it for scrolling and navigating around, and the texture is also quite similar to the rest of the body, giving me assurance that it's kind of as hard-wearing as the material around it. The lighting here definitely helps set the vibe, blending in well with my already colourful setup. One of my favourite features though is this light bar along the bottom. It just expands the overall aesthetic past just the keys, helping it stand out more than your usual laptop. Depending on your style though, the lighting can be customised to fit your personal preference, whether you want a solid colour, a certain pattern, or even to turn them off individually or add specific colours to certain keys. It's all there in the Vantage app to play around with. There's even the option of setting individual colour profiles that you can switch between by holding the function and left and right on the spacebar. I did find this great for setting up different light patterns with varying levels of intensity and colour, so I could jump between my gamer style, preferably this fun audio reactive preset, and a much less distracting muted mode for everyday browsing. I love a good custom backlight, especially considering that I can change the light bar and keys independently too, really making it my own. Now the display is a 2560 by 1600 WQXGA resolution with a 16-inch IPS panel and that slightly taller 16 by 10 aspect ratio. Again, it's worth investing in a Lenovo laptop specifically, as it comes with this must-have PureSight immersive display that's specially calibrated for X-Rite Pantone certified accurate colour and HDR capabilities to guarantee super sharp, colour-rich visuals for showing off those especially beautiful adventure titles. It has an anti-glare matte finish, which is good if you're out on the go and are up against ever-changing light conditions, and I've hardly noticed any severe reflections even when working with these harsh studio lights. The bezel around the screen is quite thin, and thanks to its large display, I found it had plenty of space for both general browsing and games, feeling fully immersed in the action. As it's definitely a gaming and kind of creative-based laptop, it will of course have some excellent colour, brightness and contrast abilities. Practically every colour felt vibrant and sharp, particularly in lively, colour-rich games like Apex Legends. I did find the display in general to be very stunning. It's instantly noticeable even when watching a few game trailers, and thanks to that high refresh rate of 240Hz, watching fast-moving content feels natural and incredibly smooth. Putting it through some tests, the display is pretty unbeatable on quality. It remains sharp and clear even at the sharpest angle, and with a panel brightness of around 500 nits. It definitely didn't struggle watching dark scenes and working in bright conditions. And the picture overall stayed consistently readable, which is a win for me. I even thought the colours were accurate when looking at a solid colour, for instance, and I did find there was zero sign of deformities out of the box, like dead pixels and clouding, or at least they weren't immediately obvious, especially when just using it in general. So it's just an overall winner for display quality overall. The real power here is the internal specs. Now you'll be pleased to hear that you get the latest 2023 can offer in the form of a 13th gen Intel i9 processor coupled with an Nvidia GeForce RTX 4080 GPU. It's also backed up by a 32GB DDR5 RAM and a cozy 1TB M.2 SSD. Now it's upgradable too, so you can add extra power if you need to, but to be honest, for a gamer-focused laptop, this at the time is more than enough support to get you through some of the most intensive popular games on the market right now. Of course, there are other spec variants available to fit your needs and budget, but this model seems just right for some serious gaming.
Of course, if you want to guarantee incredible gaming performance that only gets better the longer you play without having to spend a lot of time configuring the settings, Lenovo's new Smart AI Engine Plus does the work in the background to optimize the games for you for maximum performance. It's definitely a huge feature to take into account, because this LA2Q AI chip learns from your gaming style every time you play, over all of your games, and adapts the settings so you always get the best experience possible, and that includes reaching those higher frame rates. It's a brilliant way of future-proofing your laptop for keeping up with the unknown upcoming releases, and it's a relief to know that it works automatically, so you don't even have to think about it, you're always just playing at your best.
Speaking of which, let's try out a handful of games to see how well it performs. Now I tried out Forza Horizon 5 and Apex Legends here on mains power, mainly to see how well it coped with those fast-paced titles in that buttery smooth refresh rate. I downloaded the games straight from the Xbox app, thanks to that complimentary free 3-month subscription to the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate that came with this laptop. Even if you don't normally play games through the Xbox app, it's great to utilise the offer anyway, as it lets you try out hundreds of titles to see what you like, without having the gamble of buying the games at full price. With the specs on offer, I wasn't surprised at the suggested quality settings that Forza put forward. Extreme quality is always a bit hit and miss in the past, but launching into the game, I honestly saw no immediate warning signs. I could set off racing around the streets at 130 miles per hour, taking risky turns, and still saw no visible lag, tearing, or drops in resolution over the 2 hours that I had the game running. After doing a quick benchmark, it ran the processor and graphics pretty hard, but the results are so much better than some of the laptops I've tested in the last year. Getting into Apex, I again had a very similar experience. Though my reflexes aren't as natural as they could have been, I wasn't held back by the system at all. Gaming even on the suggested settings played out beautifully overall, so I'm curious to see how well it could truly perform if I took the time to customize the settings even further. Now with such a powerful gaming base, you'll want the audio to match the same kind of quality. So the laptop has two 2-watt inbuilt speakers positioned towards the front on the left and right. It is a little more premium than your usual laptop speakers as they use Harman audio, giving you peace of mind knowing that anything from game sound to movie audio will be decent even when you don't have a headset to hand. I personally thought the audio was rich and detailed, and the volume on loud was incredible considering it was coming from such a small set of speakers. But to give you a quick idea, here's a small sound sample for reference.
How's the hunt going? Watch out, there is no power! Judging by the 3 tons of dead fish, not well.
Now, running games on mains power can take a drain on the system, but taking a look at this updated version of the Lenovo Vantage app really helps keep it under strict control. Apart from changing the RGB lights and checking up on the overall usage, I found myself playing around with the thermal modes the most. Now, the quiet mode is exactly what it claims to be, but of course, as I was gaming, I wanted to see how well the performance mode held out during long game sessions. The fan noise is thankfully quite muted overall, across a variety of the modes, and yes, you get a bit of noise when it's working away to keep the system cool, but it was hardly a distraction here. I didn't find the body to get overly hot as well when playing games, which is a relief, but most of the heat sat just under the screen for the most part.
It looks like Lenovo have put quite a bit of work into the cooling system that they've dubbed Cold Front 5.0, specifically designed for keeping a bit of extra support for the 4080 and 4090 models. The cooling system is pretty intense, packing in a hefty improved fan system, combined with the vapor chamber and hybrid heat pipe, so I'm not surprised that the temps stay pretty low and the performance clearly benefits heavily from it.
Now, Lenovo have worked really hard to put in a pretty decent cooling system here, so I feel like overheating will definitely not be a problem in the long run. What's also great is having the ability to customize the performance and fan speed here too, so if you're really particular about it, you can set it to bend to your particular way of working. These features are largely only available on the mains power though, so bear this in mind when thinking about how you're going to use it. Even if you're not a fan of customizing every setting to maximize performance, it's also a bonus to note that it has an AI engine to help learn your patterns of use and optimize it as you play, taking away a lot of the guesswork to just let you focus on the game. For a premium machine, you're going to be looking at a battery that matches the performance. Now, Lenovo boasts that the battery here is more powerful than usual, making most of that 99.9 watt-hour capacity. I had this laptop running largely on mains power for game performance purposes, but when I took it off the power, I found it maintained the battery life above 50% for over a few hours, even after being on consistently playing videos. Of course, the battery life will always depend on how much you use it and what you're using it for. Managing the battery is easy enough thanks to the battery saving features, and the handy widget in the top corner really helped remind me when the battery was running low, even offering a few little toggle switches for enabling some power management aids. Even after using it pretty heavily for a few solid hours, I only found myself putting it on charge after a day's use, but only to top it back up to full from around 50%. So after using the laptop for over a few hours, I can definitely say this is a worthy upgrade if you're looking for something capable of running the latest games. The new specs are ample enough to support recent and potential future game titles, and if you're making the upgrade from an older laptop, you'll definitely see an improvement on what you can achieve, and that's not just for games. It may not be the lightest, but it's worth it for the additional effort put in for a decent cooling system and having the ability to upgrade things like SSD, for example, if you need a boost. It's a pretty good, powerful machine, and if you want the latest specs for a little less, then this is definitely a viable solution.
So what are your thoughts on this Lenovo Legion laptop? Let us know in the comments below, and if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Box, where we have plenty of hands-on reviews on the latest tech. And as always, thanks for watching.